Welcome to Singapore Property Talk La. Imagine settling into your dream apartment here in Singapore, looking forward to quiet evenings, maybe a stable community vibe. Now, picture that peace being constantly disrupted, like a revolving door of strangers next door. This isn't just like a hypothetical thing, it's right at the center of a pretty big battle happening in Singapore's property scene right now. We're talking about the crackdown on unauthorized short-term rentals. Today, we're diving deep into the recent enforcement actions, what they actually mean for our homes and neighborhoods. And hey, if you find this deep dive valuable, please do remember to like it and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our latest insights. We're going to try and uncover the full scope of these alleged operations, the pretty severe penalties involved, and maybe most importantly, the real reasons behind Singapore's very firm stance on this. Okay, so let's maybe unpack the basic rules first. Singapore has always had, exceptionally clear regulations for renting out private homes. The law states a minimum stay rate, 3 consecutive months.
That's right. 3 months minimum. And it's not new. This isn't something that just appeared. It's been foundational for a long time.
Right, a cornerstone. But what seems different now is the enforcement level. It feels like it's ramped up.
Grammatically, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. We've seen really decisive moves lately. You mentioned the charges, 2 individuals, 4 companies, and it's across, 50 private residences?
50 properties.
Yeah.
That's a lot. It suggests something more organized than just, someone occasionally bending the rules.
Exactly. It points towards a much larger scale operation. And what's really illuminating here isn't just the scale, impressive as that is, but the specific cases now in court. These are high profile. It sends a message, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's a clear signal from the authorities.
The URA, specifically, the Urban Redevelopment Authority.
Yes, the URA brought the charges.
Yeah.
And that really solidifies their position. They're showing they consider this critical to the urban fabric, you could say.
So not backing down on this one.
Not at all. It's a strong message to everyone, really, not just those directly involved.
Okay, let's get into the specifics then. Who are we talking about and just how big were these alleged operations? One major case involves a James Chua Jr., 44 years old, also known as Chua Yunda. He's facing, get this, 90 charges under the Planning Act.
90. Wow.
Yeah, 90 counts. And for listeners maybe less familiar, the Planning Act is basically the rule book for land use here. It gives URA the power to enforce how properties are used. So 90 charges for allegedly renting out 90 separate units.
90 units across 22 different developments. That's quite a spread.
And it wasn't just him acting alone, right? 3 companies where he's a director are also charged.
MR Singapore, Metro Relocations, and Cleaning Center. They got hit with 90 charges combined as well.
Which really underlines the organized nature of it all, like a network.
Definitely looks like a structured operation, yes. Not just random incidents. And then there's another separate case, but just as significant. Joshua Go King Hong, aged 47. He used to be the COO of a company called ST Hospitality.
Okay.
He and the company, ST Hospitality itself, they each face 80 counts. Similar alleged offenses.
80 counts each, so another big number.
Yes, allegedly involving 80 units across 28 different private residential developments.
And the penalties. You mentioned they're severe.
Extremely.
So,
To give you an idea, each single charge, each count of providing unauthorized short-term accommodation carries a maximum fine of $200,000.
$200,000 per charge.
Per charge. So you do the math. 90 charges here, 80 there. If found guilty, we're talking potentially millions in fines.
Wow. Okay, so that's definitely not just a slap on the wrist.
No, it's a huge financial deterrent. It seems aimed at making these kinds of large-scale illegal operations completely unviable economically.
Right. So this naturally leads to the big question, why? What does this mean for Singapore's housing landscape? Why is the URA so incredibly strict on this 3-month rule? Especially, when you look globally, short-term rentals are booming in many big cities. It seems almost Turner trend.
That's a really good point, and it gets to the heart of Singapore's strategy. Officially, the URA states the rule prevents that high turnover of transient occupants, keeps things stable.
Okay, stable.
But if you dig a bit deeper, connect it to Singapore's whole urban planning philosophy. It's quite unique, isn't it?
How so?
Well, unlike cities maybe focusing more on tourism via the sharing economy, Singapore, with its limited land and carefully managed housing, the priority seems to be firmly on the long-term residents.
Prioritizing residents over tourists, in a way.
I think so. It signals a commitment to resident well-being, property stability, maybe social cohesion, over quick tourism bucks. Think about it from a resident's perspective. You buy or rent a condo for peace, privacy, community.
Right?
Then suddenly, the unit next door becomes like a hotel room. New faces every few days.
Yeah, I can see how that would be just noise, security worries.
Exactly. Increased noise, maybe security concerns because you don't know who's coming and going, more wear and tear on shared facilities. It just erodes that quiet enjoyment people expect.
It changes the whole character of the place.
Precisely. So the rules are there to protect that residential integrity, to keep homes as stable living places, not just transient stops. It's about harmony, quality of life, community fabric, especially in such a dense city.
And it gets really interesting when you see where these alleged rentals were happening. It wasn't just one type of area. The properties listed in the charges, they're all over the map, aren't they?
Completely. It shows an incredible breadth.
We're talking condos deep in the heartlands, like Centro Residences and Angmokio, the lakefront residences out in Lakeside, places you typically think of as family neighborhoods.
Typical residential areas.
But then it also includes the really high-end stuff, 7 Claymore, OUE Twin Peaks, right in the Orchard area, luxury spots.
That geographical spread is significant. It clearly shows these weren't niche operations targeting just one market segment. They were extensive, opportunistic, really.
Hitting all levels of the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And beyond heartlands and luxury, you also had properties listed right in the CBD. V on Shenton, 76 Shenton, Robinson Suites near Raffles Place.
So basically everywhere there might be demand.
It paints a picture of a sophisticated, widespread network. And what's also notable, as you mentioned earlier, the companies involved. Public records show they're still operating.
Right, which is curious. Metro relocations, MR Singapore, or NHR? Cleaning center does cleaning. How does that fit?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? It makes you wonder if these seemingly unrelated businesses might have been part of the infrastructure, maybe admin support, key handovers, maintenance, a sort of hidden network supporting the rentals.
A way to disguise the activity.
Potentially.
Yeah.
And then ST Hospitality, which was involved in the Go case, their stated business is management consultancy for hotels.
Okay.
And their website actually mentions serving thousands of guests in service departments and co-living hotels, offering both short and long stays.
So that line seems a bit blurry already.
Exactly. Their own description touches on that gray area the regulations try to define. It really makes you question the full scope, how integrated these alleged rentals were with their official businesses. It's a complex picture.
Yeah, it is. And interestingly, the court documents apparently didn't specify where Chua and Go advertised these places or how much they were charging. Those details are still missing, but would definitely add another layer.
They would. But what isn't missing is the URA's determination. They've been very clear, publicly stating they will continue to investigate and take strict enforcement action.
So no letting up. This is an ongoing effort.
Seems like it. It signals a long-term commitment. And this commitment is vital not just for enforcement's sake, but for public confidence, right? Maintaining trust in how our residential areas are managed. And it's not just the URA acting alone. The public has a role too.
How so? You mean reporting suspicious activity?
Yes. The URA encourages people, if they suspect unauthorized short-term rentals happening, to contact them via their website.
And they guarantee confidentiality.
Absolutely. All information is kept strictly confidential. It creates this sort of collaborative oversight, makes it harder for these things to go undetected.
So a shared responsibility.
Exactly. So wrapping up, this whole deep dive into the recent charges really highlights the government's firm stance. It's about preserving that residential character, the community living experience. It's more than just rules on paper. It's about protecting the quality of life here.
Yeah, absolutely. And it definitely leaves us with a big thought, doesn't it? Looking ahead, how do we balance things? I mean, there are evolving demands, right, for more flexible accommodation, maybe from global workers, changing lifestyles.
That's a real tension.
So how do we balance that with the crucial need to keep our residential communities peaceful, stable, private, especially in a super dense place like Singapore?
It's a complex challenge many cities face. Singapore's approach, prioritizing the long-term residents so clearly, it's certainly a unique and compelling perspective.
Definitely something to think about. Well, thank you for joining us on Singapore Property Talk Law for this important deep dive today. We'll catch you next time.